In the early 20th century, on the rolling countryside of Brainerd, Minnesota, nestled on a 40-acre farm, lived the Hansen family. They were a typical farming family, hard-working and dedicated to their land. The Hansens' ancestors had immigrated from Norway, and their Norwegian heritage was deeply ingrained in their daily lives. Life on the farm was challenging, but Ingrid and Lars Hansen were very self-sufficient. They were very proud of their Norwegian heritage. Ma and Pa had 40 acres, 20 acres of corn and a big garden. They were able to grow their own food, including fruits, vegetables, eggs and meat. Summer produce was canned in order to feed the family during the winter months. To round out their pantries, they purchased items they could not supply like flour, sugar, and coffee. Kerosene lamps were used to light the home and outbuildings at night. Homes were heated with wood, or coal if the family could afford the expense. Regardless of the weather, going to the bathroom meant a trip outside to an outhouse. They also had to hand carry water to the house for cooking and bathing. Ma and Pa Hansen have 5 children. Their eldest son, Eric, was a bright and ambitious young man who had earned a scholarship to the University of Minnesota. Despite the long distance from home, Eric was determined to pursue higher education and make his family proud. Next was Olaf, a charming and enterprising young man. Olaf had found a niche in selling stereoscopes and photographs to fellow locals who marveled at the beauty of their surroundings. He had a keen eye for capturing the essence of the landscape and had become quite successful in his entrepreneurial endeavor. The other 2 sons, Henrik and Anders, dedicated themselves to working on the family farm. They toiled under the sun, tending to the crops and livestock with great care, following the traditions passed down by generations before them. Their daughter, Astrid, loved the river and often would visit the Brainerd docks to see the large paddlewheel steamboats. Her adventurous spirit had led her to explore the world beyond the farm's borders. The Hansens are a God-fearing family. They go to church on a regular basis. They love each other very much, and they always support each other through thick and thin. They often celebrate Norwegian holidays and traditions. Letter writing was a cherished activity for the Hansen family. Each week, Ma and Pa would sit by the cozy fireplace, penning their thoughts and news onto parchment. They would recount the everyday joys and challenges of farm life, sharing their love and aspirations for their children. The mighty Mississippi River flowed through the small town of Brainerd. Brainerd was a thriving commercial hub with sawmills, warehouses, and merchandise stores supporting the river trade. Massive sidewheel steamboats with names like War Eagle and Golden Era stopped at the long wooden docks of Brainerd to load cargo like lumber, wheat, and limestone quarried nearby. Passengers also crowded the decks of these riverboats, taking advantage of the key transportation link the river provided. The sounds of steam whistles and calls from rivermen loading freight echoed from the Brainerd waterfront. The paddlewheel steamboat, the Northern Belle, arrived in Brainerd captained by Hans. Astrid was fascinated by the boat and crew. Hans owned the paddlewheel steamboat and conducts river tours along the Mississippi River between Brainerd and Winona. She meets Hans and feels an instant connection. They court over the next few months during his visits to town. Hans proposes to Astrid and she accepts. She is excited but also is hesitant about leaving her family and childhood home. Astrid married riverboat captain Hans in 1922. She begins traveling with him and helping on the boat. She often sent heartfelt letters to her parents, updating them on her new life on board the Northern Belle. Astrid sat comfortably on the deck of her riverboat, the Northern Belle, as it made its leisurely way along the majestic Mississippi River in southern Minnesota. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a warm golden glow across the water, while the crisp breeze carried the gentle sounds of nature. Astrid's husband, Hans, skillfully steered the boat, his hands expertly manipulating the large wooden wheel. Astrid watched him with admiration, a contented smile gracing her lips. Together, they had built a life aboard this riverboat, conducting excursions for locals and tourists alike, between Brainerd, Minnesota, and St. Louis, sharing the wonders of the Mississippi. Astrid loved the river and being able to share its beauty with tourists from all over. She would point out eagles soaring overhead and the rocky bluffs lining the river. Hans was the captain, expertly navigating the sometimes tricky channels of the upper Mississippi. He would talk about the history of the area and tell funny tales about life on the river. The Northern Belle is a grand paddlewheel steamboat plying the waters between the sleepy town of Brainerd, Minnesota and the bustling port of St. Louis. For 1 month, the mighty Mississippi River would be my home as we transported passengers and freight on our regular route through the heartland. The Northern Belle was a vision from another era, its huge 30-foot water wheel throwing up dazzling sprays of current as the large sycamore planks of her decks gently swayed with the river's motion. At over 200 feet long, with soaring white wood sides topped by elegant dark green awnings, the steamboat evoked romantic images of the river's Wild West heyday of the 19th century. Yet inside, the Northern Belle provided luxuries and amenities fit for the modern traveler. The passengers lucky enough to afford the lavish deluxe staterooms were treated to spacious quarters with polished wood paneling, plush red draperies and large beds with crisp corn linens. Personal washrooms and copper bathtubs adjoined each cabin. Every decorative detail exuded the warm ambience of a grand hotel. Those traveling in the second-class cabins were almost as comfortable, though their rooms were slightly smaller and they shared bathing facilities down the hallway. Even in coach class, all passengers had access to opulent dining halls where they could enjoy family-style meals included with their fare. What culinary feasts we sampled on the long voyages. The chefs took full advantage of the southbound routes to source fresh local delicacies. Breakfasts may include farm-fresh eggs, thick sliced bacon, buttermilk biscuits and sawmill gravy. Luncheons offered crisp salads, fresh-baked breads, and roasted quail or pheasant. Dinners were the pie de resistance, with multiple courses bringing new delights like flaky baked catfish, thick smoky barbecued meats, corn puddings, and rich desserts like southern pecan pie still warm from the oven. Accompanying wines complemented each dish perfectly as we dined in high style. Of course, the true highlight was the ever-changing view outside the large picture windows that lined the ship's dining halls and promenade decks. Drifting lazily down the river's shining silver corridor, one could lose their cares watching the gradually shifting landscapes and abundant wildlife glide by. Thick verdant forests of oak, cypress, and willow bounced back our whistle's echoes, while further south the shorelines mellowed into lush wetland marshes where blue herons and snowy egrets stalked the shallows. In the fall, we witnessed trees ablaze in wild autumnal colors stretching to the horizon. Frequently, we spotted herds of white-tailed deer tentatively coming to the banks to drink, while bald eagles and ospreys soared effortlessly above. At night, the riverbanks seemed to come alive with choruses of croaking bullfrogs and howling coyotes as we slipped through the darkness under canopies of glittering stars. Astrid decorated the ship with quilts she had made and fresh flowers every day. Passengers loved browsing the gift shop and sitting on the deck watching the world drift slowly by. As the boat glided through the calm waters, Astrid immersed herself in her favorite pastime, reading letters from her ma and pa. Each week, for the last 2 decades, her parents faithfully wrote to her, chronicling their lives back in their small hometown of Brainerd, Minnesota. The letters were a cherished connection to her roots, a reminder of the love and support that had guided her throughout the years. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a vibrant spectrum of colors across the sky, Astrid's heart swelled with gratitude for the life she and Hans had created. These are letters from Ma and Pa to their children and the responses they got. The letters contain language and punctuation in their own hand. Astrid has accumulated 200 letters from and to family members. She decides to read a few letters every night to entertain and educate the passengers about the early farm life in Brainerd, Minnesota. She gathers the passengers in the dining hall so they could enjoy the view as well as the letters. Astrid begins to read a few of the letters. She welcomes questions from the passengers. The date is May 5, 1931. Brainerd, Sunday, October 8, 1899. Dear son Eric. Your letter came to hand last night. You know we were glad to hear from you as you hadn't wrote in so long. I have not been well in about a month but kept going until Sunday morning. I was taken down. Sunday evening I had the doctor call in. He said I had malaria. He came today and says he thinks I will be alright in a few days. I am feeling much better today but am very weak. I can't hire anyone, so that makes it bad. You spoke of the temptations being many and severe. You must put your trust in Jesus. Only trust him. He has promised never to leave you nor forsake you. Every temptation helps us on if we do not yield to it. If we yield, then we are that much weaker. Eric, don't you think you had better get Olaf to sell your scopes and views? You don't know what you may do next year, and if you should do the same work, those you have will be out of time and will not sell. I will now close. Be a good boy. Your loving father. Brainerd, October 12, 1899. Eric. Pa has wrote and told all the news, I believe. I was glad to hear that you were coming home Christmas. Hope you will continue to have your health. We have so much sickness in the community. It makes me feel lonely and sad. I knew not how soon my boys might have the same fever, for I am afraid Henrik is sick now and won't write. I am daily praying for the health of my family. May the Lord bless you in your work is my pray. Ma. Brainerd, October 18, 1899. Dear son. We received your letter this morning. Glad to hear that you were well. We heard from Henrik last week. He had but very little news. He said his health was good and he got plenty of something to eat. You asked about the check. Dave says it is all right. He has not heard anything from it. Pa has gone to St. Cloud with Henrik with his corn. He had 2 loads and hired Henrik to carry 1 load. He will write and tell you the news soon, I reckon. I am afraid it will make him sick again. I begged him not to go, but he said he would get nothing for them if he shipped them. I am very busy today stewing and caning grapes. I have thought of you many times today and wished you had some to eat. Ma. Dear son. You asked if I were going to keep all the horses. I am keeping them yet. I am trying to get that wart cured, but it is getting worse, so I shall not be able to get anything for him if it don't get well, so I guess I shall have to take almost nothing for him. I am not going to keep them all nohow. Eric, what do you think last meeting day at Trinity? They killed the resolution which said they would not fellowship any member in the church who made and sold brandy, and so they voted for brandy. All but 7 or only 7 voted against it, and Dave still sat on the fence. What do you think of a church that acts that way? I think God will hold every member guilty. I am almost persuaded to leave the church. There is no use in paying money to keep up a church when it is ruled by the spirit of the devil. They ruled Newsom out and would not let him speak. They elected Davis and promised to give him $200. I think that is too much. They had better pay a common preacher less and more to somebody else. I was very busy and didn't go, so I don't know as I have any right to say anything about it. I am fast losing confidence in the most of the preachers. They are preaching mostly for popularity and not for the life, the love of Jesus. Pa. Brainerd, November 16, 1899. Dear Eric, the reason I have not written to you, I didn't feel that I had anything to write. Anders came home Saturday. We raised between 30 and 35 barrels of corn, and about 5 bushels of rice. I have only been to school 1 day this week. Pa has not sold any goats yet, but has turned them in the field until they have gotten very fat. He says he is going to keep some of the nicest nannies. Uncle Johnny and Anders are going to St. Cloud to purchase a top. Your affectionate brother, Henrik. To Eric at the University of Minnesota. Dear Eric,